You are in the temple of the rants, where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Christopher Matthews, who says, rant about collecting figures and anime junk in general. Do you still enjoy collecting, or do you even see any real purpose in it anymore? I keep going back and forth, and I really haven't been buying any collectibles in the recent past because I have a lot of regret purchases. Like, when I was younger, it was a combination of you had to buy it to really consume it, and the fact that I thought it was cool and I wanted to have an otaku room. I wanted to have all this stuff. But, after a certain number of DVDs that I bought that were bad or that I didn't watch, or a certain number of figures that I paid way too much money for and they're not even that cool, or I forgot about the show anyways, or even that broke because I don't take good care of my shit, and they get dusty, they're high maintenance. Like, I understand if somebody really cherishes their collection and takes care of it, why they'd go for it. They can melt and fall apart. Like, I have these two big-ass... I guess, like, all of my regrets, the final nail in the coffin for all of it was Kanan. Because Kanan was a show that, when it started, I was super mega into it. And most people were not. Everybody was telling me the show was dog shit, and I was the only one who was really into it. And it took me a long time to finish it. And when I did finally finish it, I thought the second half was not nearly as good as the first half. But I ended up buying, not only do I have a Kanan Figma, which is actually great, I don't mind the Figma, but I bought these two gigantic statues of Alphard and Kanan, that face each other, like they're jumping at each other, and it's a cool idea for a set. However, there's no way to angle them where you can see them both if they are in fact jumping at each other, because one of them's back will always be to you. So actually posing them in the way that they're supposed to be didn't really make sense. Alphard's gun was also pointed slightly off, so it was hard to even line it up correctly. And they are cool figures and all, but they're both on just one peg going into one of their foot because they're in air in mid-action. So they inevitably broke. And I think Alphard's foot broke off entirely, and in Kanan's case, just for some reason, the peg, I think, has stripped the hole and it won't fit anymore. She was leaning pretty bad. So, those, and I have not rewatched the show. I'm, afraid to. I had bought it on Blu-ray as one of the last Blu-rays I bought, because it was fairly cheap, and I got it for Christmas. But I was super pissed off to find that it was supposedly 1080p, but it was it was an upscale, so they're just outright lying about it being 1080p. Or I don't even know if it was an upscale or if it just straight up wasn't even in 1080p. But it definitely was not a native 1080p resolution. Because I think I found out that the show hadn't even broadcast in 1080p, or it wasn't even made that way, something like that. But anyways, it just was the level of disappointment and distrust I'd had towards all this spending. And, these things are expensive. It's if you end up not feeling strongly about it in the long run, you've blown a lot of money. And, I have a lot of these figures that are from shows I don't care about or characters I don't care about anymore, and it's just it becomes regrettable. Whereas spending money on momentary things, there's nothing that can tarnish your memory of having done something. And even if it was not a great time, just the fact that you can tell the story, that you got something out of it, makes it fun. So when I buy a figure, I might feel good about it at first because it's oh cool, I have this character, I love it, it's on my shelf, it's nice to have. But as soon as I start feeling less powerfully about it, it just represents money spent that I can't get back on something that was supposed to be a permanent fixture. That's kind of the appeal of it, is that it's a thing that you have forever, a treasure in your collection. But if you don't care about that treasure anymore, then you develop the regret for it that you don't get from, having gone out and done something. So, yeah, gradually over time, I started losing interest in buying these kinds of things. Now that I have a lot more money, it's the regret isn't as strong. I feel I could spend a decent amount of money on a figure and it wouldn't matter if I don't end up loving it forever, because, it's not that big a deal to have spent that money. But most of the ones that I have bought, of what few I have been like ones that you can get for $30, or like Figmas, which are cool because you can pose them, but like I don't pose them, so even then I always look at it and I just go like, man, I've had that Figma for 6 years and I have never once done anything with it, or those Nendoroids for just as long. So like, I don't know. I feel like I have a sizable collection. It looks fine as it is. There hasn't been like a character I felt so strongly about that I felt like I needed to buy merchandise for them. What I much prefer is more practical things that I can use in videos. Like, I like buying posters, which unfortunately are hard to come by these days because they're so easy to fake that nobody sells real ones anymore. But I like posters because I'll look at it all the time, it'll look cool, it doesn't cost that much, and it can be a good backdrop for my videos. I like to buy t-shirts because I can wear them around, you know, like I have more clothes. If I have a cool looking t-shirt, again, I can wear it in videos, I could wear it to conventions or whatever. It's like, you know, I appreciate getting stuff that I get more use out of than something that just sits on my shelf and looks pretty and then I end up regretting because I don't care about that show anymore 5-10 years later. So like, there's a part of me that still thinks it would be really cool to eventually like buy a proper like curio, and because like my mom is a big time collector. It was in my family. It's in my blood. Like, I grew up with my mom having a gigantic case of every Sandman figurine that ever was created, you know? And like, it looks badass because she maintains that thing. Like, well, first of all, it's a glass case so it doesn't get dusty. And also, like, you know, she arranges it well. She makes sure that everything looks cool in her office, and like, she will never regret those purchases because she doesn't change the way she feels about things the way I do, you know? Like, she doesn't reread Sandman. Like, she read it 20 years ago and just thinks it's fucking cool. I'm the type who will go back, look at something again, and decide it's not cool anymore because, you know, my tastes have changed. So, maybe if there were, like, if I had a curio and I had just stuff that was from stuff like I knew was good, that I've been a fan of forever, it'd be different. It also doesn't help that, like, you don't really have that much options when it comes to figure buying because they don't tend to be on the market for long. They're all kind of like, you know, a figure comes out, there's a certain window in which you can pre-order or buy it, and then it's gone. And like, it's a market that encourages you to always be buying new ones as opposed to buying the exact ones you want. So like, for someone like me who doesn't really have many like flavor of the month waifu kind of shows that I get into, like, you know, when something like ReZero comes out, you got infinite options for figures because they make 1,000 figures of Rem. Well, I don't care about Rem, so where does that leave me? Like, you know, with shows that either don't get figures or old shows whose figures have been out of print forever. That's always been a problem for me. Like, when I go to Otakon, I used to go to Otakon with $500 every year, and I would struggle to find something to spend it on. Like, I would scour the entire fucking dealer's hall trying to find any figures from shows I actually cared about, or art books or something, and then I would end up buying them just because they had it, just because they actually had something from a show I care about. And then I, you know, get it home and I'm like, well, this thing isn't even that cool. You know, like, it's not like a great figure or anything. It's just a representative of the show that I like, but was it worth the money? So yeah, I don't know. I have too many regrets.